Fun fact about me and the Wii U, I sort of assumed at the age of 10 years old that it was a sort of Switch type of console. Yeah, anyways, so the Switch is finally out, and there's some pretty positive reviews, but there's still some skeptical people that are actually in the middle between a Wii U and a Switch. I know for some of you that might be insane for either way, like, who would want to get a Switch or who would want to get a Wii U? But there's legitimately people like that. So before we look forward, I think that we should probably look back and see why is the Wii U or the Switch better than one another in each category. Yeah, let's do this. One of the most crucial things in the business aspect is marketing, and the Wii U had absolutely barely any marketing done. There were a couple of ads, and to see Reggie talk about it at E3, and there were barely any campaigns that you would see with like a celebrity that you would see now with John Cena with the Switch, and I sort of found this a little bit odd, but there's actually some extreme foreshadowing in one Nintendo Power magazine, and Nintendo Power magazines were basically the only way back in the 90s to find out the news with Nintendo, the new games and stuff, and there was a little Q&A section in one of the magazines, and I don't exactly remember because it wasn't really a question, it was more of a complaint. And to sum it up, it basically said, you should probably market your consoles to the older generation so that the younger generation will see that as cool. Now, as we can tell, today that is very crucial, because whatever the big kids are doing, the little kids are going to be like, oh yeah, we gotta do that too because that's the cool thing to do. So when you put little kids in a Wii U ad, it doesn't look cool at all, and that's the issue here. So when there were commercials, they showed little kids for most of the part. There were only a few commercials that were funny, like this one. But Nintendo has really shown that they have learned from their mistakes. With their new campaign ideas that they had, with the campaign of traveling with that little Switch room, and some cities where you could try out the Switch, I think that was excellent, especially having it at the Super Bowl. I know that 100 million people made out of mid-aged adults that just want to see their team win probably don't care about the Switch, maybe some of them do. I'm not really sure if the audience was targeted very well, but hey, you know, get the word out. Here is the biggest issue about the Wii U. The Wii U was not really made for third-party games. At first it was doing pretty good, it had Black Ops 2 and Ghosts, but for some reason it all just stopped randomly. And I'm assuming that that happened due to the fact of the controller, because you have to program for that as well and that takes time, and also because of the poor sales. The other sad thing though is that Nintendo didn't really have that many good games at launch, but the Wii U still had some really fun games. It had some really good Smash Bros, Mario Maker, Mario Kart. If those games were released on day one, I think that the Wii U would have done a tiny bit better, but for sure, if there was third-party games, this would have been the selling point. Especially because back in the day, the Xbox One was really considered like the worst of the worst out of the three, with all those rumors that you'd have to be online for at least every day or else you would lose that game or lose Xbox Live or something like that. This would have been the perfect opportunity for Nintendo to take Microsoft down, sort of like what happened with the PS3 and the Wii, where everyone didn't like the PS3, so they got a Wii and a 360. This would have been Nintendo's time to overthrow Microsoft, but that didn't really happen. There are some people that say that there aren't that many good games at launch, and there are more than the Wii U had. And one thing that I like that Nintendo did is that they also laid out a plan for more games to come out instead of just saying, well, we'll have to see at E3 or something like that. And as we can see, since we first heard about the Switch, the list of games has increased and it's still growing. Especially at E3, that list is going to be packed. I'm not sure what we're gonna expect at E3. I hope it's a Metroid like everyone has said. I hope that we could get some more cool, like, big third-party publishers. It would be really nice to play GTA on the go. I don't care if it's even GTA 5. It would be cool if EA and Activision released Battlefield and Call of Duty on the Switch. The power is there, the partnership is there, and also Bethesda. Please, even if you release New Vegas, I just want to play Fallout on the Switch. That would be amazing. And Bethesda seems very excited with the Switch. Like, whenever they mention Nintendo, that's the only thing they talk about. It's the Switch. Like, they're so in love with it. The Wii U has a tiny 2GB of RAM and 32GB of storage, and for the gamepad it has a 2550 mAh battery. Now shockingly, these 2GB of RAM, these very tiny 2GB of RAM, seem to hold up pretty well. Smash Bros, everything runs in 60 frames. I'm not sure how they did it, but it works. And the gamepad itself has a 480p screen, but it actually still looks good. It's not great, but it still is pretty impressive, and the games and colors, it all just still looks good. The only problem that I have with the gamepad is that the touchscreen is a little bit plasticky like we've seen on the DS, but don't worry, Nintendo fixed this issue on their 720p screen. And by the way, when I first turned on Zelda on the Switch, it just looked so beautiful. It is a really sharp screen for being 720p. It was in high frames, it all just felt really good. Now under the hood of the Switch is a 4GB RAM, 32GB of expandable storage up to 2TB, from what I've heard, of course. I thought that it was 1TB, but another person said 2TB. So whenever those expensive micro SD cards with 2TB comes out, you could test it out. And as we can see, the battery is much better. But I think we have to take a minute to think about something. So the gamepad is much more heavier than the Switch, and it's much more bulkier and bigger, and it has a smaller battery, it has a weaker display, and it doesn't even have all the components inside of it. And the Switch is smaller than the gamepad, and it has all the components, and it's much more powerful than the console itself, and that's only been like 5 years. That's insane. Something that's much more powerful is smaller and lighter. That still blows my mind. The main feature of the Wii U is that after you turn off your TV, you can still play your games. Yeah, that's basically the main feature. Some games will interact with the controller, like in Nintendo Land for Luigi's Mansion, that minigame, you're the ghost and you can see everyone but they can't see you, so yeah, that's basically it for that. For the Switch, as we all know, just like it's in the name, the Switch is a hybrid console between a home console and a portable console. So when you have to go, just pick it up, it'll switch to the Switch's screen, you take out both of the Joy-Cons, you plug them in, and you're good. If you're on a plane or somewhere where you can rest the Switch on, you can take out the Joy-Cons and just hold them in both hands and just play. That is very cool. It makes it a little bit more comfortable sometimes. Or you can plug them into your grip, or you can use the Pro Controller. So there's many ways to play Nintendo Switch. The Wii U is Nintendo's second biggest failure, before Virtual Boy. I really do have high hopes for the Switch though. It seems to be taking the right directions, especially being innovative, something that Nintendo has always done. And sometimes when you're innovative, you don't really succeed. That's what happened with the Wii U. Even though it wasn't a good console, it was innovative. It tried to stand out against the crowd, showing that specs are not always everything, and sometimes it's just the games. Breath of the Wild may not have amazing graphics, but it still is a good game, defeating a lot of good graphics games like Battlefield 1. I have a feeling that good days are to come for Nintendo, and that sales of the Switch will do good, as long as they stand by their word, which is to support third-party games and just keep on releasing good first-party games as well. I would also like to commemorate this video to Satoru Iwata. As far as we know, the Switch was his last project. Clearly it doesn't take like 1 year to make a console, so Iwata was totally on this team. He probably did work on the Switch. There's no way that after he died, the plans on what the Switch should be started. So thank you, Mr. Iwata. You may have passed away when Nintendo was in a very hard time, but I think somewhere up there you'll be smiling when you see how well the Switch will do.